Hi everybody, welcome back to Motoworks TV. Today we are having more fun than a barrel of monkeys. My dear friend Elliot and I are on our way to go pick up the barn find of the century. You always hear these stories, but today we actually get to fulfill one. The barn find of the century would of course be a Vincent Black Lightning, but so it's not really that, but it's a pretty iconic, pretty cool couple of bikes we're going to pick up. We're picking up 1973 Honda ST90 that we're going to fix up for this gentleman Tim, who we'll meet in a little bit, for his grandson who just turned 12, and we're going to try and get it done in time for Christmas. If not, we'll have it done by the end of February as the riding season arrives. And the other one is a 1979 Yamaha RD400 Daytona Special. So a couple of weeks ago, a gentleman pulled up in front of Motoworks on a big Harley Davidson modern bike. And usually when that happens, I know how the script is going to read. It's, I have this problem, and I think you might be able to help me with it. And that person is almost always right about the first thing, but they're almost never right about the second thing. I as a general rule of thumb, I don't really do much work on modern Harley Davidsons. This gentleman had a couple of old motorcycles, one of which he wanted to fix up and give to his grandson. So right away he had me right there, because if I can help somebody get a little kid on a trail bike, then I'm going to do anything that I can to help that happen. But he also said that he didn't have a lot of money to spend on the project, so that made, of course, all these obstacles pop up. But Tim comes to the rescue, in a manner of speaking, and says, I hoped that maybe we could have an arrangement where you would do the work on this little bike I want to give to my grandson, and in exchange I would give you the other bike. So now my curiosity is piqued, of course, and it's, well, Tim, what is the other bike? And it turns out to be an iconic motorcycle from the end of the 70s, an iconic motorcycle from the standpoint of two-stroke road bikes, and it's all there. It's intact, and it hasn't been in decay and decline because it was out in the weather and out in the elements. Both of them are that way. So the little Honda is a recoverable piece, and the Yamaha, it's a 1979 Yamaha RD400 Daytona Special. And it occupies a place in motorcycling history that, in the Yamaha tradition of performance road bikes, born of and very similarly configured and engineered and performance driven like their road race bikes, it's just a joy. It was a screaming two-stroke wheelie machine, as they were all referred to back then. Everything was a wheelie machine back in the 70s and 80s, even if it really had to be thrashed in order to get the front wheel off the ground. This bike's not an example of that. Twist throttle and the front wheel just comes up in the air. So I went to go have a visit with Tim and take a look at them and see how challenging it was going to be to get the little Honda squared away for his grandson, and to see what the general condition of the RD was. And today we're going to pick them up, and it's a pretty exciting thing. I need another project like a hole in the head, so the RD400 is going to be leaving tomorrow. I will not suffer from buyer's remorse or seller's remorse because the bike will only be at Motoworks for a matter of hours. There's enough projects already on the burner, and the RD, the proceeds from it after we do parts that are required for the little Honda, the proceeds from selling the RD will fund some of the other current projects that we have. So everybody's happy about it, including, and this is an important thing, the RD400 is going to a good home up in Maryland. Belongs to a gentleman that already has a pristine predecessor to the RD400, an RD350, and he has the descendant of the RD400 as well, and that's the RZ350. So after it's restored, this RD400 Daytona Special will occupy a wonderful spot in between those two bikes in his collection. And he's always wanted one, so he's very happy to be picking up this 79 tomorrow.
Told you that angels live. Pulled at your teeth and watched your feet running up the neighbor's street. All along you carried time with your friends, you said the rhyme. To the ground. You didn't know what you had tossed, buried in the clothes you lost. And all behind you kneeling down, they faced ahead toward the sound.
So we wanted to talk for a couple of minutes about the things that it's a really good idea to take with you if you know you have to move a motorcycle that's been sitting for a long time, especially if it's been sitting outside. So if it's been sitting outside, these problems can occur in just a couple of years. If it's been sitting inside, thankfully like where we are today, you can still encounter these problems, but oftentimes they won't be quite as bad. But because we're about 30 years sitting today, some of them have propped up. So you bring an angle grinder and some cords, a generator if you don't have power, and this is to cut the chain off. You don't care about that. And if it gets really rusty, that drive chain becomes like a steel bar and it will not go around the sprockets and the wheel will not rotate under any circumstances. So you bring an angle grinder with the guard and your safety glasses to cut the chain off so you can get rid of that obstacle. You bring either a tire pump or, in this case, an air can so that you can inflate the tires. If you're lucky, you can inflate the tires and get it to roll a little bit easier. And you bring some basic hand tools so that you can, if the brake calipers are frozen, if it's a bike that has disc brakes, oftentimes the calipers will freeze, squeezing the rotor, and you'll have to unbolt the calipers, swing them up out of the way, tie them off with some zip ties so they don't bang around while you're moving the bike, and then you probably have gotten everything out of the way and the bike will roll from wherever it is to wherever your trailer is. I bring one other thing because a caliper bolt, like most bolts on motorcycles, if there isn't a nut on the other end, the caliper bolt is steel and it threads into an aluminum casting. So you have disparate metals there, a steel bolt into an aluminum casting. And that can cause that bolt to seize over time. And if the calipers are frozen and you need to get them off, the only way you're going to be able to get that done, and again, that's if you're lucky, this is no guarantee, is to bring a heat source. So you bring a little torch with you to heat the aluminum casting up so that the bolt is more likely to come out. And of course, it goes without saying, hopefully we won't need this. All right, so now we're going to get started and get these things moving. Oh,
Turn right loose.
oh yeah.
Ain't no do that.
Hang on a second.
Don't do that. You sure you didn't breathe in
Right, you set that up
Yeah,
ahead
yeah,
of
we
time.
put that
That's
off
right,
camera.
you set that up ahead of time. You don't even need the breaker bar.
Roll the house.
Oh. There. You see all of this, even though stored indoors, the humidity and the heat cycles over the years cause the brake pads to corrode, and the piston in the caliper, which is what squeezes the pads on the rotor when you slow down, they're all frozen and they won't move. So now that problem's out of the way. And we can just tie it off so it doesn't bang around while we're rolling. And then we'll see how bad the chain is. Maybe we can get away without having to cut the chain off. Tim will yell. Might be the height of misplaced optimism right here. Look at that. Ready to hit the trails all of a sudden.
You don't need my help.
Hey, be careful. Get out, stand back. This thing's gonna shoot right out from under me. So, once you're tied in, you ready to go? You have some tie downs in the back. They're not really doing much in the way of holding the bike in place, per se, unlike at the front. They act kind of like a spring line does for tying a boat, in that it's just there to help hold position. If you hit a bump, you don't want the back of the bikes hopping around, moving from left to right if you hit a bump when you're in a corner or on a ramp. So you have your little insurance policies in the back. And then you have to remember, when you're finished, for luck, to always say, that's not going anywhere. And then you're ready to go.
That was still in the tree.
I went to Billy's house today, but his mama said he'd gone away.
Somebody took the damn tank off.
And then lately he wasn't feeling so well. She could see it in his eyes, but he wouldn't tell her what was so wrong.
Sometimes it's important to realize that you might have gotten there a little too late. But even here, within this, there's still a part or two that would be valuable to the folks that all they do is Z50s. That's what this is, a Honda Mini Trail or Z50. And there's another one right over there that has no moss growing on its rolling stone of a seat cover. So you never know what you're going to find. You never know where you're going to find it. So happy hunting. Take care.
Just singing to himself, he was singing to himself.